14 members of the cult of the Raven Queen followed the party out of town. 6 went their own way, and the rest followed Oven west.
The first night out of the city, Darrow and one of the cultists were attacked during their watch. The cultist Dauber was knocked unconscious, and Darrow was captured again.
But not before he witnessed the attacker shape-shifting, similar to the way Darrow himself would do.
The party and the cultists looked for Darrow for a long time, but could not find him.
Not even in cat form.
The cult leader Raffen called upon the help of Eerie, a teenage girl from the cult whom he introduced as a soothsayer.
She was mentally unstable, so she formed a strong bond with Throck.
Zelios did not like her.
Eerie could not find Darrow, but she did come up with the name Manannan.
She implied that this Manannan was after Zelios.
Meanwhile, we also met a small boy named Jack, who was among the cultists. He couldn't speak, but seemed able to throw knives with deadly accuracy.
Around this time, an angry mob from Zahir was seen following the party's trail.
We killed them.
The party was forced to continue on, having never found Darrow.
Until the next morning, when everyone awoke surrounded by black-clad assassins, one of whom held a tied and beaten Darrow.
Though the party was surrounded by enemies, Throck could not be awakened. He was suffering some strange, storm-related ailment.
The assassins called themselves the Fingers of the Order and demanded that Zelios come with them, or else they would slaughter his companions.
They killed Dauber immediately to illustrate their point.
Without Throck, the party and the cultists were gradually losing the fight.
Until Throck's entire tribe of led by Gronda and Hork, came charging over the hills into the battle.
The surviving assassins fled, including their leader, Manannan, who took Zelios' form and flew away into the sky.
A nearby village looked like a good opportunity for shelter, so Oven turned into a cow to carry Throck, while the other waited outside of town, excited to consume the bodies of their defeated foes. Delicious.
The buildings in the village were old and disused, and the party meant only 2 villagers, the innkeeper and the shopkeeper.
Both of these men behaved strangely, speaking in a slow, detached manner and displaying odd, waxy skin. The atmosphere prompted the party to set watches, even in the inn.
Carolynn was awake to spy the innkeeper sneaking out of the inn in the wee hours of the morning. When Raylan accidentally made a sound, the innkeeper immediately turned and went to his room.
The following morning, with Throck finally awake, the party wanted to explore the village of Olmsted.
Darrow, unfortunately, was having another one of his changeling problems and forgot his real identity again. Believing himself to be a wandering trader he had impersonated was basically useless for anything but hanging out around the inn and acting scared.
The other 3 went out and met several townspeople, including Obed the farmer and his wife, both of whom behaved as strangely as everyone else.
Tristan, the shop boy, turned out to be fairly normal.
Or at least the only person in town who acknowledged that something weird was with the others.
He also wasn't a local. He was apprenticed to the shopkeeper from another village.
Tristan sent the party to talk to Zadok, the oldest man in the village,
92 years old,
who lived on the outskirts of town.
Zadok told a wild story of creatures coming out of the well and townsfolk pledging devotion to them.
So Oven peed in the well.
Oh wow.
Right now?
Right now!
In front of us?
Are you going to turn into something first, or are you just going to drop trial and pee in the well?
No, I can't turn into something. I haven't had a short rest, so
All right.
I want to save.
Both Zadok and Tristan said that it wasn't possible to leave the town. Anyone who tried would either get lost and end up back in town by accident, or find themselves inexplicably coming up with reasons to turn back.
While the party was off wandering the town, the Raven Queen cultists who had been traveling with them stayed at the inn, along with the temporarily deranged Darrow.
But one of the cultists, Baron the Merchant, disappeared during the day and came back acting unusual, like Mauser and the townspeople.
If you see him again, don't spend too much time with him.
Until another cultist, Camilla, poisoned him to death.
Yay, Camilla!
Throck carried the body upstairs to be examined, and then its brain popped out of its head.
It had legs.
It's alright. Throck killed the brain.
Then we saw Meowser. Mauser?
Canon.
Then we saw Meowser through the window, running away from the inn.
The party decided it was time to go down the well, and asked one of the cultists, Degas, to accompany them, while the still adult Darrow stayed with the other cultists.
We also left Jack to protect them.
Jack, the small child,
Who throws knives?
and can't speak.
We also called Granda and Hort to help guard them.
Then we went to the well.
We found some disgusting, smelling, fish-like creatures lying in wait at the bottom of the well. We killed them.
These dumb fish monsters could not have been the masterminds behind what was happening in the town above, so we explored the tunnel coming off from the side of the well.
As the party delved deeper into the blackness, they were forced to fight stranger and stranger creatures.
Things with tentacles, killed the cultist Degas.
Something in the tunnels chanted Zelios' own name to him in a telepathic chorus, calling him for the first time.
Excuse me, what the?
Rock spoke to a floating eyeball.
And then the squid faces attacked.
Disturbing, tentacled humanoids wielding awful powers effortlessly rendered the remaining party members unconscious.
We woke up in a field outside of Olmsted with no memory of what happened in the well.
Except for Zelios, who remembered hearing his name.
With Oven, Throck, and Zelios safely outside of town, we decided to cut back in time to find out what happened to Darrow and the cultists back at the inn. Each of our players took over the NPC stat block of one of the cultists.
Camilla, the poison specialist, and wife of Degas.
He does not canonically have that accent.
At least for a little while.
Scale, the priest of the Raven Queen.
Nori, the old blind woman and mother of the man who was killed by the brain eaters.
I was still Darrow, but Darrow was still under the impression that he was a traveling merchant.
The entire corrupted population of Olmsted came to attack the cultists in the inn. Thanks to Darrow's prowess and the quick work of the cultists themselves, said population was wiped out.
In the process, Darrow did finally recall his true identity.
And something of a love story began between him and Camilla.
Darrow overheard Jack, the supposedly mute child of the cult, speaking to some sort of invisible being who was protecting him.
This invisible creature animated the knives that Jack carried and used them in the defense of the cultists.
This, it seems, was the source of the party's previous impression that Jack himself was an expert knife thrower.
Once Darrow and the cultists escaped the village,
Along with Tristan the shop boy.
they caught up with Throck, Zelios, and Oven a few miles outside of town, at which point they all became NPCs again.
We spent the rest of the day resting.
For some reason.
During their watch, Jack's invisible guardian spoke to Zelios, warning him to stay away from the child. Zelios agreed, but also repeated the phrase, Aku Ra Zelios, to see how the creature would react.
He replies, Archon Ra Grieve, which Zelios took to mean that its name was Grieve.
When the rest was over, the group began traveling west again, until we came in sight of a forest that Throck seemed to recognize.
The horse trees is what the Ermin call the forest that spans the river between Argus and the Untamed Steppes. And all have an instinctive refusal to approach it.
He was terrified.
No. I just don't know why anyone would want to go there.
While Throck was scared shitless,
Just bored.
Darrow and Zelios approached the trees and discovered a sick-looking, emaciated unicorn guarding the place.
She referred to herself as the last guardian and refused to allow the party entry.
Especially Zelios.
Darrow and Zelios were forced to return to the group, safely camped 2 miles away.
Upon hearing of the unicorn, Oven approached it alone, hoping to see it. The unicorn spoke with her, but did not show itself.
Ovid learned that the unicorn was the one who had put a forbidding on the forest, specifically to keep out the Ermin, who had once devastated the place.
And was promised possible entry at a future time, but still had to turn around and go back to the group. Episode 7, Killers in the Wild.
Both of whom behaved as strangely everyone else. What? It's not a hard line at all.
Met some folks.
It's just not.
So I was a dude playing a dude playing a dude.
Man.
To be fair, we've all read this like 18 times.
Yeah, we read it so many times.
Yeah, this is my first day back on the job. Sorry.
How was a 3-month vacation?
It was great.
Erie could not find Darrow, but did come up with the name Manannan.
Banana.
She
Do-do-do-do. See, we should have all mic'd up. Steve. We should have all mic'd up.